Your body is sending you a warning right now. Not loudly, not with pain, with quiet signals that most people spend years ignoring, attributing to age, to stress, to simply not sleeping well enough. But ancient healers knew these signals. They recognized them immediately, and they knew exactly what was causing them. In ancient Egypt, physicians documented a condition they called the bone-softening disease, a weakness of the skeleton, a heaviness of the body, and a persistent darkness of mood that descended on people who spent long periods indoors or in shadow. In ancient China, physicians called it the rickets disease and described children whose bones bent under their own weight, and adults whose energy, mood, and resistance to illness declined steadily when sunlight was absent from their daily lives. In ancient Ayurvedic medicine, sunlight was not considered a pleasant addition to daily life. It was considered medicine, a specific, irreplaceable medicine that no herb, no food, and no preparation could fully substitute. They were describing vitamin D deficiency. And today, in the modern world where most people work indoors, cover their skin, use high-factor sun protection, and live far from the equator, vitamin D deficiency has become the most widespread nutritional deficiency on Earth. Over 1 billion people are deficient. Most of them do not know it. Here are 9 signs your body is low in vitamin D right now. Sign 1. Persistent fatigue that does not respond to rest. This is the most universal symptom of vitamin D deficiency and the most universally dismissed. When people feel tired despite sleeping, they blame work, stress, age, or iron levels. Vitamin D is rarely considered. But vitamin D receptors exist on virtually every cell in the human body. When levels are insufficient, cellular energy production, specifically mitochondrial function, is impaired throughout the body simultaneously. The result is a fatigue that sleep cannot fix because the problem is not tiredness, it is cellular. Ancient Ayurvedic physicians called this quality of fatigue tamas, a heavy, dull, unresponsive tiredness that was distinct from the tiredness of honest effort. They prescribed direct sunlight exposure before the heat of the day, specifically on the back, shoulders, and face, as the primary treatment. Sign 2. Bone pain and lower back discomfort. Vitamin D is essential for calcium absorption. Without sufficient vitamin D, calcium cannot be properly absorbed from food regardless of how much calcium you consume. The body responds by drawing calcium from bone tissue, creating a subtle but persistent ache in the bones, particularly in the lower back, hips, and legs. Ancient Egyptian physicians describe this ache as the bones becoming hungry, a poetic description of exactly the mechanism modern medicine has confirmed. The bones are literally depleted of the calcium they need because vitamin D is absent to deliver it. Sign 3. Frequent illness and slow recovery. Vitamin D is not simply a bone nutrient. It is one of the most important immune regulators in the human body. It activates the T cells that identify and destroy pathogens. It modulates the inflammatory response, preventing the immune system from overreacting and damaging the body's own tissue. And it produces antimicrobial peptides, natural antibiotics, in the skin and respiratory tract. People who are deficient in vitamin D get sick more often, stay sick longer, and are significantly more vulnerable to respiratory infections. Ancient healers across every tradition prescribed sunlight specifically for patients who suffered from recurring illness, observing empirically what modern immunology has confirmed mechanistically. Sign 4. Depression, low mood, and seasonal sadness. Vitamin D is a direct regulator of serotonin production, the neurotransmitter most associated with mood stability, emotional resilience, and the feeling that life has meaning and pleasure. When vitamin D is low, serotonin synthesis falls. The result is a mood that feels heavy, flat, and unresponsive to circumstances that should produce happiness. Seasonal affective disorder, the depression that descends in winter months when sunlight is scarce, is fundamentally a vitamin D and serotonin deficiency syndrome. Ancient healers called it the winter sadness and universally prescribed movement outdoors in morning sunlight as the treatment. They were correct, not metaphorically correct. Sign 5. Impaired wound healing. Cuts, scrapes, and surgical sites that heal slowly or poorly are a clinical sign of vitamin D deficiency that most people never connect to their nutrient status. Vitamin D is essential for the production of compounds that manage the skin repair process, including growth factors that signal new tissue formation and anti-inflammatory compounds that prevent excessive scarring. Ancient Ayurvedic healers applied preparations containing sunlight-activated plant compounds to wounds and prescribed sunbathing of the affected area, observing that wounds healed faster with direct sun exposure. The mechanism is now understood. Vitamin D synthesized in the skin around a wound directly accelerates the repair process. Sign 6. Hair loss. Vitamin D receptors are heavily concentrated in hair follicles. When vitamin D is deficient, hair follicles enter a resting phase earlier and stay in it longer, producing the diffuse, widespread hair thinning that affects both men and women with low vitamin D levels. This is not the pattern hair loss of genetic male baldness. It is an all-over thinning. More hair in the brush, more hair in the shower, a visible reduction in density across the whole scalp. Ancient healers treated hair loss with oil preparations and scalp massage in morning sunlight, intuitively combining two of the most evidence-backed interventions for follicle health. Sign 7. Muscle weakness and muscle pain. Vitamin D receptors in muscle tissue regulate protein synthesis, the process by which muscle fibers are built and maintained. Deficient vitamin D means impaired muscle protein synthesis, producing a weakness that is distinct from the weakness of simply being unfit. The muscles feel heavy, slow to respond, and persistently sore even without significant physical exertion. Ancient Chinese physicians described this as the muscles losing their spirit, a quality of weakness and heaviness that they associated specifically with insufficient yang energy. Their description of the active, warming, sunlight-connected force that drives physical vitality. Sign 8. Brain fog and difficulty concentrating. Vitamin D receptors are abundant in the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, the brain regions responsible for memory, learning, attention, and executive function. Deficiency impairs the cellular metabolism in these regions, producing the experience that most people describe as brain fog, a difficulty finding words, a slowness of thought, a feeling that the mind is operating through fog rather than clarity. Multiple clinical studies have found significant correlations between low vitamin D levels and cognitive performance. Ancient healers prescribed morning sunlight walks specifically for patients they described as mentally sluggish, observing that exposure to early morning light consistently improved mental clarity and responsiveness within weeks. Sign 9. Sleep problems. Specifically, difficulty entering deep sleep. This is the sign that surprises most people. Vitamin D regulates the sleep-wake cycle through its influence on the production of melatonin and its relationship with the brain's circadian clock mechanisms. Deficiency disrupts the timing and depth of sleep, particularly the slow-wave deep sleep phase, where the most significant physical and neurological repair occurs. People with low vitamin D often report falling asleep adequately, but waking unrefreshed, as if sleep did not do its work. The ancient prescription of morning sunlight before any food or activity was not only about energy production. Ancient healers observed that morning light exposure determined the quality of the following night's sleep. Modern chronobiology has confirmed this observation precisely. 9 signs. If you recognize 3 or more of these consistently: fatigue that does not respond to rest, bone ache, frequent illness, low mood, slow healing, hair thinning, muscle weakness, mental fog, or poor sleep, your vitamin D levels deserve investigation. A simple blood test measures your vitamin D level. The optimal range is 60 to 80 nanograms per milliliter. Most people test below 30. Many test below 20. Below 20 is clinical deficiency. The ancient prescription was simple: 20 to 30 minutes of direct sunlight on the arms, legs, and face each day before 11 a.m. or after 3 p.m. to avoid the most intense UV radiation, not through glass, direct outdoor light. If your lifestyle or location makes this difficult, a quality vitamin D3 supplement taken with K2 and a fat-containing meal is the evidence-backed alternative. The K2 is essential. It directs the calcium that vitamin D mobilizes into bones and away from arteries. Ancient healers did not supplement. They went outside. The sun was always the medicine. We simply stopped using it. If this found you at the right moment, share it with one person who has been tired, low, or unwell without explanation. They may never have considered that sunlight was the answer. Subscribe to Ancient Body Wisdom and come back every single week. There is so much more the healers knew, and we are only just beginning.